Coming up on this episode of Game, it's a post-apocalyptic wonderland as the fragate takes a trip through the wastelands. We bounce our way through what we think are the best online catches of the week. And we take an inside look at how the boys behind Ghost Recon imagine war in the future. Consoles at the ready, boys. This is Game. Hey fellas, what's new? Welcome to another episode of the only show that brings you a fresh fry-up of the bold and the beautiful in the world of teeny tiny animated characters ripping each other's heads off or blowing them to pieces. Lovely. So on this episode of Game, we're going to deliver what many of you have asked for. Now, there have been pleas from you on our Facebook page asking for our thoughts on Rage. So, Fraggy, our game guru extraordinaire, skipped his anger management class this week and got himself all riled up for an angsty time with id Software's brand new baby.
Ark survivors are worth a lot of money to whoever hands them over to the authorities.
There are people who stand up against the authority. You could be useful to them. They call themselves the Resistance.
Our group is small but dedicated.
Elizabeth tells me you're a man we can trust. Someone who can help us in the fight against the authority.
Fraggy here, back in the gaming den this week as we check in with a game which has been getting all the shooter fans excited since it was first announced back in 2007. id Software's Rage. Now, if you haven't been keeping up with the news about this game, Rage is first and foremost a shooter set in a post-apocalyptic wastelands of Earth many years after an asteroid hits the planet. And while the gaming landscape has seen its share of games like Borderlands and Fallout, which use the exact same premise, the reason why so many gamers were looking forward to Rage was simply the fact that it comes to us from id Software, the godfathers of the first-person shooter, a company which brought us the classics like Wolfenstein, Doom, and Quake. Built using a cutting-edge video game engine called id Tech 5, id Software's new kid on the block promises a new level of fidelity in the graphics department, running at a silky smooth 60 frames per second, even on consoles, and a new mega texture system which allows the developers to uniquely paint the world. So, interesting new technology to go along with a spanking new game. But I guess what all the shooter fans want to know is the actual game any fun to play? Or have the boys at id somehow lost their Midas touch? Well, my friends, lock and load, because we're about to get into the meat and bones of one of the most highly anticipated FPS games of this generation. So, let's find out.
Saving you may have changed all that.
Now, the thing that most gamers will probably want to know is how's the actual shooting? And I'm glad to report that on almost all fronts, the combat in Rage is definitely one of the highlights of the game. Building on their long history of delivering awesome action, the shooting in Rage feels excellent. You start the game off with a highly underpowered pistol, but from your humble pew-pew beginnings, you slowly start to amass a healthy collection of munitions. From shotguns, to crossbows, to assault rifles, the guns in Rage all work beautifully, and once you get a few dollars, can be upgraded for things like quicker reloads and lower recoil. In addition, each of the weapon classes can also equip up to 4 different types of ammo. From pop rockets for your shotgun, to electricity bolts, and even mind-controlled sniper rounds which allow you to take over and blow up enemies at your will. Plus, you can even craft items like wing sticks and sentry bots, all which help keep the combat fresh and interesting. Now, Now, aside from the gunplay, another one of the reasons why the shooting in Rage stands out is due to the animation system, which I can safely say is one of the best in a shooter so far. Enemies don't just run towards you, they jump and dodge realistically, moving from cover to cover in a stylized dance of death, which should keep even the most hardened gamers on their toes. And finally, I love the art design, which gives you a great sense of a world that's been lived in. Very Mad Max, very cool. Now, the main flaw I found with Rage was that while id Software does get a whole lot of things right, like the shooting mechanics and the enemy artificial intelligence, certain other aspects like the story, well, they're not as polished. Now, John Carmack, id's founding father, has once famously come out saying that story in a game is like story in a dirty movie, in that it's expected to be there, but it's not really that important. And I can't help but feel that despite their best efforts, the story in Rage never really captured my imagination.
I see.
Characters, even though well designed, all act like cardboard cutouts whose only purpose is to stand around and give you tasks to complete.
You're gonna need to return there and retrieve that drive. Do you understand how important this is?
In addition, technically, if you're playing it on a PC, there are a host of problems related to textures popping in, especially when you enter a new area and the game starts to load the graphics. And even once the graphics are loaded, extremely low resolution textures mean that the world looks really pretty from far, but once you get close, it's far from pretty. And finally, my biggest gripe comes from how the world is designed. I do feel that a lot of this is wasted on the fact that almost no shooting takes place on the overworld. Instead, all the missions pretty much involve you having to drive to a location just to open a door where the real level begins.
Well, will you look here? A new face, a new body. Oh, I am so glad I got out of bed this morning.
I mean, why give you such a big open world to explore and then not include anything worth exploring? In the end, Rage really feels like an early FPS corridor shooter which was brought kicking and screaming into this generation of games. A generation which seems to be obsessed with things like open world exploration. But the problem is that aside from the kick-ass combat, most of the other additions feel weak, especially when you compare it to other games released this year. Sure, the driving elements are a nice distraction, but ultimately, the main reason to play Rage is for its combat, which sadly only makes up about 1/3 of the whole game. And the fact that there's no deathmatch multiplayer mode is almost unthinkable for the guys who pretty much invented the genre. Now, don't get me wrong, when it gets into its stride, the shooting in Rage is really something. But I guess it's up to you to decide if that alone is worth the price of a full game.
You can shoot stuff and drive a kick-ass off-roader. Way too cool and not to be missed, guys. And for those of you that have already had a go at it, well, why don't you tell us what you think on Facebook? Now, why don't we get our emotions under control and take a quick break? But don't even think about touching that remote, because when game returns, we're going online, unearthing precious free-to-plays with a punch. And we take to the derby to demo games we think you should try before you buy. and welcome back to the most awesome show all about the weird and often wonderful world of video games. You're with me, Kelly, and it's time to get back to work. So grab your helmets, recruits, and get in them tanks. It's time to blast some bots to Kingdom Come. This is Online.
In this week's pool of overflowing online goodies, it's military might and miniatures as we check in with a curious little action title all about planning and battle know-how. In Think Tanks, don't let the colourful levels fool you because this game isn't quite as easy as it looks. Requiring keen planning and strategy, keep an eye out for bullets that bounce off the walls, or you may just end up killing yourself. So if you like what you see and you've got a mind to give it a shot, Think Tanks can be played by following the link below. Next up, basketball fans reeling from the NBA lockout, listen up. With the 2012 season in jeopardy, here's an easy way to get your hoop fix without spending a dime. In basketballs, no pros hogging the limelight. Instead, you and your team need to score through every basket in order to beat the level. With bonus points added for knocking out the refs, it's also got a great sense of humour when it comes to the sport of hardcore 5-on-5. This fresh take on sports puzzle action should squeeze out a few laughs out of fans of the game. And finally, if you weren't one of the lucky ones to score an invitation to the long-awaited release of the Battlefield 3 beta, here's what you've been missing out on for the last week. The recently released demo featured 2 maps, the Caspian Border and Operation Metro, each of which showcase different aspects of the game. On the Caspian Border, an assortment of vehicles from tanks to armoured cars, and even a couple of jeeps and jets thrown in for good measure. While over on Operation Metro, the focus was squarely on toe-to-toe combat, with fast-paced, on-your-feet action requiring players to be quick and nimble. As you can probably tell, the game's something else, so look out for it at market calendars because the full version is set to hit our shelves on the 25th of this month.
Now, I'm a firm believer in the fact that sometimes a good bit of virtual violence can be an awesome cathartic release. Well, moving on from one battlefield to another, except this time it's orcs on the table. Yep, those nasty no-gooders are up to it again. Let's draw our swords, because it's time to enter the Demo Derby. First up, it's a race against time to build your defenses and ready your arsenal as we get ready to battle the oncoming Orc hordes. In Orcs Must Die, the player assumes the role of an apprentice to the late Master Sorcerer. His job to protect the castle from the countless hordes of Orcs headed his way. At your disposal are weapons such as the crossbow and sword, along with an assortment of unpleasant surprises like tar pits, pressure-sensitive spike boards, and even dart walls which shoot high-velocity spikes at passing enemies. With gameplay reminiscent of a modern-day third-person tower defense game, plant your traps wisely and make good use of the time, because the horde waits for no man. So if you're the adventuring type who enjoys a daily brush with death, the demo for Orcs Must Die is available for the PC and Xbox 360 right now. Next up, it's time to burst into the second dimension and lay waste to the abominable legions as we pull the trigger and take a look at some double D action, courtesy of everyone's favorite Serious Sun. The latest installment in the Serious Sam franchise, Double D, is a hand-drawn side-scrolling shooter which lets loose the heavy ammo that you remember from the old Serious Sam games. With a gameplay mechanic which allows you to stack your arsenal for some extremely over-the-top action, fired to the beat in a symphony of destruction, Sam himself would be proud.
LeBron, you reach, I teach.
And finally, even more b-ball action this week as we pump it up with the boom shakalaka action of NBA Jam on Fire.
Count it.
A modern-day remake of one of the classic arcade b-ball stars of the 1990s, dish up some crazy tricks and even more outlandish dunks as you fight for hardcore supremacy.
Wait, Sleepy, you just got pwned like a noose.
Now the game comes with an all-new Jam Now game mode, letting you choose between either the Dallas Mavericks with Jason Kidd and Dirk Nowitzki, or the Miami Heat with two-thirds of the Heatles Dwayne Wade and LeBron James.
To LeBron.
So choose your team and take to the sky. An awesome title to whip out during a party. The demo for NBA Jam is on fire right about now.
I said excuse me. Just powers over his
Now I won't lie, when I saw the title Serious Sam Double D, I wasn't thinking about guns, that's for sure. Alrighty, time for a quick break, but stay with us because coming right up, we give you a glimpse of upcoming games to get excited about. And we prep ourselves for the launch by going inside Ghost Recon. Up next on Game. Welcome back to the third and final segment of the show. Time now to check out what is going on in the gaming world to prep ourselves so we know which titles to spend our pocket money on in the next few months. So let's kick back and relax as we check in with the preview.
No speed limits, no rules, no allies. That's how it's going to be in EA's latest take on the Need for Speed franchise. This is The Run. From San Francisco to New York City, it's a high-stakes race across the country to get your life back on track.
He's under the car, grab it! That's the guy! That's the guy! Get him! Get him!
With over 300 kilometers of open asphalt to explore and hundreds of the world's most notorious drivers on your tail. All you have is your determination and a healthy serving of four-wheeled magic to keep you running as the race for your life begins. Taking multiplayer first-person shooters to the next level, Blacklight Retribution involves a lot more tactics and decision-making to accomplish your objectives. Set in a sci-fi universe with gameplay which has you trading kills for experience points, level up with all new weapons, armor, and customizations. With the game constantly changing every time you play, replayability is definitely the key word here. Not to mention, it's also free to play. Inazuma and the boys are back on the streets of Kamurocho in their 5th installment, Yakuza, Dead Souls. And this time, there's a bit of a zombie problem going on. Members of the Japanese underworld strive to rid the city of the zombie menace in a game that combines traditional organized crime with an episode of The Walking Dead. Bottom line, zombies in Tokyo, Yakuzas with guns. What else is there to say?
Arigato gozaimasu, Fergie-san. Nothing quite like a little bit of zombie blasting in the back streets of Tokyo, hey? Okay, so coming up, our next game in question sure knows how to keep its fans waiting. With a release date that has been pushed back by not 1, but 2 years, this long-awaited take on modern combat is finally almost ready for release. Showing us what they think team-based warfare will be like in the years to come, let's step inside Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Future Soldier.
Hi, I'm Tommy Jacob. I'm the creative director on Ghost Recon Future Soldier's multiplayer. We're back here at the shop after E3, and we're excited to show you the version of the game that we demoed at the show. When we first started Ghost Recon Future Soldier, we recognized 3 key ingredients we wanted to focus on. It's a Ghost Recon game. Combat had to come first. Shooting had to kick ass. Next, we focused on intel. Our intel loop is a unique aspect of gameplay that gives players a new and visceral way to play a support role. Third is teamwork. Rewarding the player and creating advantages for playing as a team is a key ingredient to making it feel like a traditional Ghost Recon experience. In Future Soldier, we have 2 separate, equally equipped factions, the Ghosts and the Bowdark. Within each faction, you have access to 3 roles. The Rifleman uses assault rifles and light machine guns and is designed to be on the front line, delivering a wall of bullets and explosions to the enemy. The Scout has a more subtle approach, using sniper rifles and submachine guns to stealthily take down enemies. The Engineer uses shotguns, personal defense rifles, and some of the coolest equipment like the drone to collect intel to share with his team. The mode we're showing today is Conflict, which is our objective-based team deathmatch. Ghost Recon Future Soldier will feature 4 multiplayer modes, which are all objective-based to encourage teamwork. We're bringing the most refined cover system available to the Ghost Recon franchise. Cover swapping is the fastest movement in the game, and believe me, when the bullets are flying, cover is your friend. Firing the light machine gun in the direction of your enemy causes complete chaos. When suppressed, the camera shakes and pushes into your character, affecting your field of view, focus, and aim, limiting your ability to effectively return fire. There's equipment available like smoke grenades to help you get out of these situations, but the best tool is having a teammate take out the enemy suppressing you. The drone is one of over 13 pieces of equipment providing access to our intel loop. Having intel allows you to know your enemy's position. In our playtest, we've seen a single player with intel take out entire squads. Each role provides unique equipment to access intel. In addition, there's also equipment available to allow players to counter the intel loop and outsmart their enemy. In Ghost Recon Future Soldier, we have several pieces of equipment that allow you to stun your enemies. While an enemy is stunned, you can hack into their system and download their intel, sharing it with your team. This allows your team to know the position of your enemies for a limited amount of time. Intel is extremely valuable. You don't want to get hacked. Once you're down, a teammate is your best hope of getting back in the game with your intel intact. Using augmented reality, the coordination system displays a virtual path to objectives and teammates. For the first time, new players no longer have to worry about learning a map in order to be able to navigate quickly to their objectives. Our confidence system encourages players to play together. A lone wolf can take up to 20 seconds to interact with an objective. With teammates in proximity, you not only have someone watching your back, but your interaction time can be cut in half.
Our charge is in place. Good work.
Certainly looks like it was worth the wait, and only a few more months to go before it's finally within our grasp. Well guys, that brings us to the end of this week's edition of Game, but remember, if you want to watch the best bits one more time, then head on down to our website at espnstar.com/game. Or you can chat with us or any other game enthusiasts at facebook.com/ESSGame. And to get hold of those ever important links, follow us on Twitter at ESSGame. We'll see you guys next week for more game goodness. Bye-bye.